Welcome to the Secret Recipe Podcast. I'm your host, Mz.Skittlez. Hey guys, back for another episode of the Secret Recipe Podcast. Today I have, guys, my voice today, these allergies in Atlanta,
I know.
Africa, help me out here.
I know. It's rough.
It's rough, but I am here all day. So pray for me. And
you got it.
This is going to be the most exciting episode. We're going to be talking about all things influencer, brand partnerships, acting, just getting out there. I know so many of you guys want to know how to monetize your talents, how to partner with great brands, and Africa has done it essentially your entire life. Like, how did you get here?
Gosh, it's so funny. It's like such a winding road of things because, I think we talked a little bit before we turned on the cameras is that, with a lot of the things that I do today, there was no way of knowing, that when I started out, like I, went to college, had an English degree. I was like, I'm going to law school. I wasn't going to law school, but, that's what I told myself. I knew that I always wanted to do something creative because I grew up, in musical theater and dance and, was in choir and did all those things. But I did not know that there was a way to like build a career or a life essentially being myself.
Wow.
And, it kind of took a real, I'll give you the super short version, but it definitely started like I was in New York. I was in a girl group after college and like living.
Singing?
Singing. I've lived. But that was kind of what got me, it got me out of Alabama. And, once anybody that's ever lived in New York, kind of same if you move to Atlanta or LA, once you get to like the city, you're like, I'm not going back.
Yep.
And it really was a process of me just kind of like, hustling the grind, figuring it out. And I left New York, came to Atlanta, and found myself on reality TV. And, had a show on Bravo, and that was an experience. And around that time, though, social media was also really becoming, a real thing. And
right.
This was about 2013. And that was the first time that I got paid by a brand to post content on Instagram.
Okay.
Because I've always been an early adopter of social media. I was on Instagram, when it was an editing app, like before it was what we know it to be now. And a hair company paid me curls. It was a brand Curls. They paid me about $300 to do however many posts.
I love Maisha.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. But this is, again, I was gonna post about these products anyway. So when you start realizing like, oh, there's something to it. And I just think around that time, it just started to click for me that like I could have control of my own story, but I also could make money. And I think that was the thing as a creative, was that so much of it was like struggling to be a singer or to try to act or try to do these things. And you have all these like random side jobs, but it's like, oh my God, now I can live and have freedom, but also like make more money than I ever thought I could, just by, in essence, of being myself.
I think so many people miss out on that one part, right?
Yeah.
They want to be the influencer and have all the big brand deals.
Yes.
But if you just get that one deal, it builds so much confidence to make you understand that, wow, this is a real life career.
Exactly.
If I do this once, I can do it again. I can do it again, and I can make it a real thing.
You can, and I think what a lot of people that sit on the outside, they're like, oh my God, like they see brand deals, they look so fun, but I think they realize is that the people that you see, like the Jackies, the Maddies, the people, even myself that have been doing this now for like 10 plus years, it's not by accident. It's not just because we've said like, oh, we're going to post some like pretty pictures on Instagram and call it a day. It's like, it has been a thoughtful, intentional process of storytelling, of building community, of creating content. And, that is why brand deals come. And that is why brand deals come consistently. And that is why the larger scale brand deals start to happen. Because there's a difference in getting paid $500 for an Instagram post or getting $50,000 for a large partnership.
Wow.
And I think that's what people need to grasp is that you can get a lot of one-offs, but the people where you see that are starting to have these partnerships where they can create, their own businesses and their own brands and honestly change the legacy of their families from then on out is because they have been intentional in creating this content.
So explain that a little bit, because somebody may not know the difference between a one-off deal and an actual $50,000, $100,000 brand partnership.
Gotcha.
So how do you go from one to the next? And then what is the deliverables that is
Like what it looks
required
like.
from you? Yeah.
So, when you hear somebody talking about a one-off, that is like something where, say, a brand reaches out and says, oh, we like your content. We'd like to, maybe send you, say, this bottle of water to try and make one Instagram post, and we'll pay you $250 for it. There's no relationship building there. It's really just transactional. It's like, okay, they said they probably will tell you usually you get something called a deck that tells you like the type of images that they're looking for. They might give you some photo examples, things not to do, and you create the content, they approve it, you get paid in 30 to 60 days, and it is what it is. When you start looking at, y'all, my dog is just living his best life on this set.
It's totally fine. I'm a dog mom too.
I appreciate it. When you start talking about the larger deals of, say, the 50,000, or more, or just the large partnerships. Hey, Papa, I know. He's even had his own brand partnerships.
Wow.
Everybody works in my house. But Bailey has done that as well. But when you're usually looking at, when brands start to spend that kind of money, it's really about partnering with you and also the community that you've built, your own metrics and what you have, because the benefit that they're going to get, and this is something that I learned because I started as a commercial model, meaning that I was the face of brands as a model. I was in like national commercials. And what I understood from being the face of those is that when you're on a set, there's millions of dollars spent to make sure that your hair is perfect, the light is perfect. There's a reason why they chose this shirt. There's a reason why these are sitting here. All of those things go into it. So I took that expertise that I gained as a model, just sitting on set and watching and soaking it in, and I applied that to my brand partnerships. Wow. Because a brand knew that when they worked with me, and they know that when they still work with me, they are getting that level of content, that level of execution, that level of production, and that's why you can then charge more. That's why those partnerships go from a one-off to a brand coming back and saying, you know what, we did this one-off with you, but it was so great and you over-delivered and the quality was so great. We want to work with you for 3 months, for 6 months, for a year. We want to come back in another year. And so that's what I would tell anyone that's interested in content creation at any level, is that your execution has to be immaculate if you want to see that financial reward.
Wow. Now, talk about the moment where you walked onto set 15 years ago for Cream of Nature and shot for hair care products that are now still making its way around the world.
That was such a transformational moment because, one, I was a girl that grew up hating my hair. And, I had tried to transition, and I was finally natural. And so for that to be the thing that kind of broke for me was me being, in essence, my most authentic self. Was that just on a personal level was incredible. Two, Cream of Nature is such a legacy brand within the African American community for our hair. Like, when you crack open that shampoo bottle, like that smell. Yep. I have been using Cream of Nature my whole life, my family, everyone. And I always like, oh, I want to be on a perm box. So I was like, it was not a perm box. But, to be able to be one, that's when that changed their marketing and who they were as a company. Because before that, it was strictly focused on relaxers and all of those things. So that argan oil, the Morocco argan oil campaign changed the black hair industry. And so to know that I was one of the faces and part of that will be so special. But on set, I was so nervous. I had never shot a campaign and model, you think Tyra Banks. So I was like, what am I had every moment on set, I was like, they're going to realize I'm not supposed to be here and be like, ma'am, we found somebody else. This is not working. I was so nervous. And it was a good example of not being present because I was so in my head that I felt like it went horrible. But like we said, now, however many years later, those images are still here. My first billboard from them was on Chattahoochee around the corner from where we are now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does that feel, right? Because I have this really big thing with static stuff. Mm-hmm. I hate looking at photos of me from 5 years ago. This is why I don't want to do TV, because I'm those episodes will air 10 years from now. Yeah. And I'm why did I have the hair? Why did I have the outfit? So when you look at your previous campaigns, are you excited about your growth, or do you criticize yourself for where you were then? Because I think that stops a lot of people from creating great content, because they're once I put it out to the world, this is I'm never coming back.
You know, I feel differently. It's like when I see it, you know, I like looking at it because I see the growth, number one. But also it's like, you know, art lives forever. And so for me, when I'm creating, I don't care if it's an Instagram post or it's anything that I'm creating, like that's something that has come from my spirit, from my mind, or from whatever. And so that lives forever. And that's a way that I'm always going to be here.
Yep.
And that I've always, like, I've contributed something, or like a piece of me is there. So I would tell anybody, like, don't be afraid to create, because, you know, I mean, on one hand, yes, the bad stuff does live forever. So you do have to think about what you say. But just from a point of like worrying about like how you look or how you feel, I'm just so thankful for the opportunities to have done those things. And that, like, I know how I felt as a little black girl looking in magazines. And it's like the only time you saw black women in ads was at like a black hair salon in those ads. Like, we didn't get a chance to be in these mainstream, you know, with mainstream brands and things like that, like we are now.
Yeah.
So like I love any opportunity that I get a chance to like leave my mark in that way.
This episode and conversation is powered by Girl Mob, a digital community for female entrepreneurs everywhere. I love that. So now you are full circle. Mm-hmm. You are acting.
Yeah.
You are doing voice work.
Yes.
Which, honestly, I didn't know voice work was a thing until MC Light. Like,
yes, exactly.
Now I hear her voice at every award show,
Yeah.
every, commercial, and I'm like, oh,
right.
I know this voice.
Exactly.
And I didn't know it was an actual thing.
It is. Like, I have a voiceover agent in New York that I had to record a voiceover sample for an audition this morning before I came.
Wow.
So no, it's a legitimate like career and work. And what I love about it, you know, it's not the sexiest, because like you said, it's not something that's very like flashy and like everybody knows. And I even had a moment last year when the commercials were running, and you know, we're in such a like show me culture. And I really, for the last 2 years, have been in a place of kind of just reassessing how I want to like live and work and present myself, and you know, this need of always feeling like I got to let people know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I've really been trying to divorce myself from that. So it was really challenging for a second when I booked the voiceover and like the commercials were running like every 2 seconds. But I was like, nobody knows, because I'm not in the commercial. Because here's the thing, I've been in commercials in the past.
Yes, that could be so difficult.
But I realized
wanting that instant gratification.
But I also realized, like, this is the challenge, though, when we talk about doing the work. Like, this is the challenge of doing the work. This is a challenge about your prayers. You know, you're saying, okay, I want you. If you're saying as a creative, you want to work and you want to be able to the ability to use your gifts, then this was an ability to use my voice, use my gifts. I get residuals. And I was like, what are you sad about? Because you're also not like in the commercial. So I was like, oh, this also exposes where more work needs to be done. So it's always just interesting how you get opportunities and what it does for you and gives you a chance to kind of like really look at yourself.
So you are the official voice of TJ Maxx.
I am the voice of TJ Maxx. So when you hear those commercials,
okay,
you hear my voice.
Give us an example.
Oh God, I don't remember the script, but it is. This is something to the point of like to the max. Like, so it's like
wow.
And it's funny now, because when I think I finally did post something about it, one of my girlfriends was like, I did hear. I was like, now. So once you hear it, you're like, oh, that is me.
It's funny because so many people always say like, you have such a distinct voice, the raspiness, like you need to do voice work. And I'm like, when I hear my voice, I am like, no, this is not the voice of someone that needs to do voice work. And
but
so
it's just like, you know, the thing about, you know, acting of any type is that it really is just about what that quote unquote character or client or whatever needs at that time. Because, you know, for this thing, it worked. They needed my like voice and inflection and the personality that I chose to give, because it really is an instrument, and it really is just, you know, really learning how to kind of tweak your voice and play with like, you know, the natural things that you're good at. I mean, same with hosting in these conversations. Yeah. This is very different from your very first one.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? And every time you do it, you're like, oh, I liked how that flowed. Or if I did this, I can tweak it and do a little different. And so I treat my voice the same way. Like how I approach singing is totally different from how I approach, you know, a voiceover client or a voiceover project.
I think what's most important about this episode is that you should really write down, if you are watching this episode or listening, you should write down every gift, every unique gift that you may have about yourself, because what she thought was, oh, I'm going to be a model, a pretty face, a hair model, I'm going to do all these things. And now she is the official voice of TJ Maxx. And I guarantee you, when she walked onto that first set, never did you think that your voice would be something that would pay you
Yeah.
for years and years and years and
And
years.
not in this way, because I grew up like, I love Whitney Houston. I want to sing. I want to sing. I want to sing. And singing for me has been something that I love, but it was never the thing that took off for my career. It never was.
Wow.
So again, it's like, you don't know how, again, like how your gifts will be used, because it's like, yes, I'm using my voice just in a different way. And I talk about this, you know, I have a book, Step Up, Step Out and Shine.
Wow.
And one of the things I really talk about in the book is about like, you can hold on so tight to like your vision of yourself and of what you think your life should be, and like how, you know, the way you're going to express your gifts, that you can lose out on opportunities. And I talk about how like music for me was like that for a very long time. I was like, well, I'm going to be a singer and that's all I'm going to do. And like life was like, no, you're not, because here we are. And it's like, no, you know, I still sing, I love it, but where I've gotten, you know, my biggest successes have come from being myself, you know, hosting conversations, like those types of things, building community, but also, you know, with acting. I always ran from acting because it's hard. You have to be vulnerable. It's not just like, people think it's like, oh, you just get up and say some words. No, y'all watch shows all the time. You're like, that's horrible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then you watch other things, you're like, I feel it, you know? So it's like, it's not an easy thing. And I was finally, I think, at a place in my life these last few years where I was really ready to like stop running from the vulnerability and really do the work. You know, of working the craft and studying. And now I see a difference in my career. I went from, I hadn't booked anything like scripted. I had been in the game. I'd done a film like about 10 years ago, and I'd done a lot of commercials, because commercials very much like, you know, buy this water. It's very refreshing and, you know, whatever. But acting is totally different. And when I rededicated myself, I started booking work, and I think the first thing I booked was Archive 81. I booked that and it was on Netflix. I booked that in November of 2020 during COVID. Wow. And then from there, I booked, you know, First Kill, which was on Netflix. I was recurring on The Resident. I booked a voiceover, a scripted voiceover that was the first thing on Shonda Rhimes on Shondaland on her audio network.
Wow.
So it's just been like, oh, when you commit yourself to doing the work, you will be rewarded. But there's a patience there that you have to have, because like I've been in this business in different versions of it for almost 20 years.
I think the most important thing for me that I've taken out of this interview is understanding to always evolve into your best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be vulnerable and to tap into new gifts every single day. Like, you're not going to be that box model you're all the time. You're not going to be the actor. You're not going to be that influencer. Like, I think so many people struggle with evolving into the best version of themselves, especially because social media has put us in a box of what they believe that we should be.
I always tell people, like, think of your life as a Google Doc. Like, you're going to always need to go in and adjust. You're going to, you know, it's there and you have your framework, but I never want to like be so static in my life that I'm not open to like criticism, to growth, to like education. I'm like the queen of like, I'm going to take a class. I'm going to learn this. I'm like, you know, I'm going to try this workshop, because we should always want to be getting better and sharpening those knives. And you'll find that it benefits you just as a person. And once you start getting more to the core of like who you actually want to be to live your life, then it's a lot easier to say, is this opportunity a fit for me? Why do I really want this? Because, you know, I looked at my life and it's like people on the outside are like, oh my God, you got to do all this stuff. You had a show, you had product, you had whatever. But if I was being honest, like I was exhausted. I was suffering from like extreme anxiety, and I was kind of miserable. Like, I did so much stuff that I can't even kind of remember, but if you look at it, it looks like the most beautiful highlight reel you've ever seen. And I'm like, I can't even remember like what happened.
I was literally on a stage 2 weeks ago, and I was talking about my success. And I was saying like, you know, in 2020, one of my companies made $16 million. And they were like, oh my God, we want to sit next to you. Like, we need to rub shoulders with you. And I was like, I'm trying to rub shoulders with you because you sleep. I'm trying to rub shoulders with you because you relax. I'm trying to rub shoulders with you because you can actually take a day off from working and not take your laptop to the beach. So what people may see as a dream reality, sometimes to the person that is actually living in the dream, it's not. a dream.
It's not.
It could be a nightmare.
It could. And
no matter what it looks like.
On the outside.
Perception, yeah.
You know, it's funny. I tweeted last night before I went to bed. I was like, the more I heal, the less ambitious I become. And it's like, so people, and it was like, it started this whole conversation because that's the truth. Like, I defined myself by the fact that I was ambitious. Yeah. Like, I was like, you know, I'm going to have this, I'm going to do this. I was launching, ready to launch. But like, thankfully, through like therapy and great coaching and all this work on myself, you know, I came to realize that so much of that was like really rooted in like a lot of trauma and a lot like an extreme need to be acknowledged, to be recognized, to be seen. And it's like once you start to kind of heal those things, it doesn't mean like, well, I don't do anything, but my drive for it is different. So I don't need to do 20 things.
This is so good because literally I was on vacation and I was like, oh, I don't want to post. And my husband was like, oh, baby, you have all these events coming up. Like, don't forget to post about it. And I was just like, yeah, I just want to really do nothing. Like, I really just want to have no need to do anything. And I got so many messages that week from my team, from people around me, like, are you taking a break? Are you okay? Is everything fine? We haven't seen you post a story. We haven't seen you post. Is everything okay? Are you taking a social? It's like, I took 2 days off from posting.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now I'm on a whole, but it's the freedom of understanding for me that my business is run without me needing to do that. But the certain level of hustle that we come from, the hustle culture will put you in a box of feeling like I have to always be on the go. I have to wake up and post. I have to do this.
And you
I
don't.
have to do that.
And that's the thing. It's like, I remember I would tell my therapist, like, but I this and that. And she's like, but if you didn't do that, what would happen? And what I realized was like, nothing would happen. Between 2021 and 2022, I don't know if I posted 20 times. And I'm being like, and this is I am somebody who built my life and my work and my money online.
Yep.
And I was like, if I continue at this pace, like I won't be here. Yeah. And I was, you know, and it's like, I know people who, and like, I tell people all the time, we're going to black girl magic ourselves to death.
Yes.
Because I know some amazing women who are not here because they could not live anymore. But if you looked at their social media, it looked beautiful and perfect and they were inspiring people. And I'm like, we have to have, I think, more honest conversations about in this quest for like excellence and work and like building our brands, that it's like, but you have to build yourself.
Ooh,
and if you are so, because the thing about achievements is that they come and they go. So if you're so tied to the achievement and that achievement leaves or something about you changes, I could have some injury tomorrow and my face be, it's like, if everything is so tied to that, then who, like, you won't be able to function and you won't be able to live. And I just, like, those are the conversations I, like, when people ask me now about like what's important, it's like, it's how am I actually doing, not what project I have next, because I always define myself by my projects, and it was killing me.
Yeah. Wow. I could sit and talk to you forever.
I know, it's just so good.
Africa, this was amazing. We have to do an episode 2 because I think more women need to hear about that. We have came from nothing. So our ability and our goals are so high, and we don't want to see ourselves struggle. We don't want to see ourselves grow.
And let anybody down.
Yeah, we don't want to let anybody down, but every day we're letting ourselves down. You're letting your internal, mental, spiritual, physical self down. Yes. You guys, I hope you really learned a lot, and honestly, this was an amazing episode to me. I literally feel like every time I sit on this couch, I'm like, am I the therapist or am I in therapy?
Both,
right? Thanks, guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until the next episode, bye.